Evening to anybody who's tuning in for this one. Doesn't look like I've got anybody at the moment. I did have somebody a minute ago, but they've left because I was a bit late getting on. Just going online, posting a few Facebook messages and whatnot, just letting people on. Okay, so on the impromptu stream I did the other night, we started doing the Merregons. I have obviously done a little bit more work on them since, so we've now got a couple of gnarly looking Merregon warriors. Reading through some of the descriptions of these guys, I've actually read that they're supposed to have an enlarged left forearm with a vestigial hand. It's like a small hand that's like, you know, redundant and serves no real functional purpose. Now obviously that's a bit weird because these guys actually are equipped with halberds, which are two-handed weapons. It puts a smile on my face, to be honest. It's quite an amusing concept, but I've given them the studded arm anyway, with like some gnarly metal, like spike type things coming out of their arm. We've got the halberd. I've taken some armour pieces and inspiration from the other infernal models, the Barbazu and the Spine Devils. So we've got similar kind of like armour, the little hole detailing that goes on things. And obviously with these guys, one of the things with them is they've got these like creepy face masks. In the artwork it almost looks like a baby, so I've tried to keep it a fairly kind of like, I don't want to quite go to baby level, but I have gone for this kind of like weird looking face with like a surround, and obviously it's bolted onto the head. I've got a little bit of tidying up to do on these. There's a little bit of rough sculpting going on, a bit of stuff being pulled around. They're going to be a little bit kind of like almost like mutants, a little bit deformed. So I've got a few. I mean, I'll be honest, they're not my favourite in terms of the kind of the visuals and description on these guys, but you know, they're required. They're in there. So let's use them. So with this guy now, I'm just going to bring his. I've moved this skirt around and posed it with his leg. There's another one here which actually intersects the leg, so I just need to adjust it and move it out. So I'm just going to isolate the straps here, replace them. Just changing the pivot point so I can manoeuvre them better. I'm just going to use a very broad tool here. Drag it out. I just want it to come forward of that purple leg. I haven't put these colours on, by the way, if anybody's looking at this wondering why I've gone for the mad colours. They're just poly groups, so when you when you're sculpting in Zbrush and you create a new mesh component, it gets allocated poly group colour. So when you look at a model like this, every single colour is essentially a continuous mesh shell of its own. It's not entirely true all the time, but that's a simple way of explaining it. The halberd here is still multiple mesh shells, so is the face, and this arm with the jaggedy bits, but I've merged them all together into a single poly group. They're still separate items, but I want to be able to kind of like literally isolate the whole thing with one click, so I can just mask off everything else and just work with that one piece. So yeah, it's just a bit of a workflow easer. I'm just going to take that one there that I've missed, which is still inside the skirt. bring that forwards, rotate a little bit at an angle, and I'm just going to use the move tool to push that back. Once I've done all of the rough posing, what I'll do is I'll dynamesh these guys into a single mesh, and then I'll come back over them once they've been dynameshed with like a sculpting pass. And that will just help me to refine any details and just keep it all as I want it really. I'm going to use the snake hooks tool just to do some pulling and pushing here. I want these robes to be a little tattered looking. That is not nice. And for some reason it's picked up the same polygroup as the arm, which is just bizarre, but let me just isolate that and just group that quickly and regroup all of this, and then that keeps it separate. I don't know why it's pulled that group through. Zbrush is one of these fickle things that does weird stuff sometimes. Just going to do some push up, pull down, just to vary the hemline on the skirt. Come in with the oil cracks, my old favourite, and I've got dynamic tessellation on, so it's going to kind of add a ridge. I don't want the intensity too high on this because I don't want it to come up as a real, real high ridge, but I'm just going to run that around the outside, and that gives us like a decent sharp edge to the cloth. Obviously it's not a sharp surface, so it's more about giving it a crisp finish than giving it a little bit of definition. I'm going to come back through afterwards. I'm going to like mash it up a bit with the same tool basically, but with the settings modified, so it does some nice clean cuttings. I'm going to isolate and remove those from this mess altogether. So it's going to split hidden there, and I want to dynamesh with about 600 mesh resolution, polish and groups. Hey Rich, how you doing, mate? Oh, good stuff. Thanks for the heads up on that. Yeah, Rich has been printing the Golden Masks cultists from a previous release. From the sound of it, he's gone and thrown it into the game. So the players enjoyed and appreciated them last night. So that's all good news. All good to hear. Hey Dan, how you doing, mate? Good to have you on board, mate. Yeah, go finish cooking, Rich. I'll catch up with you later, man. Let's just turn my dynamic tessellation off. I'm going to call you Yuffie because it's a mouthful. It may come out obscene as well, but yeah, there's a lot of details on there. They're going to be 32mm models. They are what's the word? They are designed to be printed at 32mm, so there's nothing going in there that's any smaller than anything you can already see. Everything you can see in this model, you'll be able to paint with washes and dry brushes if you want to, or you'll be able to paint it all in the glazes. If you watch any of my other streams, I've been painting miniatures myself for about 33 years now, so I do print and paint my own models as often as I can. So if you ever see me at a trade show, you'll see my cabinet and it's filled with miniatures. The ones that are all painted, they're all my own paint jobs. So yeah, I paint my own models to make sure that I've got a good appreciation of what's actually going into them, what the the requirements of a miniature, the end purpose, and how it's going to be used by the customers. Hopefully, hopefully you're buying them to actually paint them, not just to hoard them. Although I know we're all hoarders at heart. Okay, so excuse me. Back onto the skirt here. I'm going to use the polish tools. I'm just going to buff out the edges here where it goes in. It's got a bit of a ridge. Don't want the ridges. I'm just going to clean them up a touch, flatten them down. I'm not worried about the profile of the edge if it's a little bit rough, because what I'm going to do next is going to make it rougher anyway. I don't want this bit here where it's going into the leg. I'm just going to use I'm using polish tool there, so that's a mistake. I'm just going to use, there we go. Use the move tool to bring that out. I'm going to switch back to all cracks now. I'm going to do this with high intensity, low size, and lazy mouse turned off. Importantly, if you leave lazy mouse on for this bit, it's weird. It kind of has to catch up with the stroke, and you don't get that immediate cut that you want. I just want little nicks, a couple of dots. Let's go for a big one there. Little slash. And these are going to be very superficial on the model, but the little holes, they'll just add to the texture of the whole thing, just make it look a little bit more ragged. So these guys are for the Infernal Legion. They're devil troops, so they're not they're basically like soulless like warrior machines. So you'll be glad to hear I'm not the only one with the addiction, mate. Yeah, plastic crack. It's one of those things, and everybody's guilty of it. You see the shinies, you go and buy them, and then obviously you're never going to have enough time to paint everything. But then again, when you paint your last model, that's it, isn't it? Every hobbyist knows. You paint your last model, you've got nothing left to live for. You've got to keep the pile of shame going strong. So yeah, I'm just doing a bit of polishing. I'm just trying to refine these edges a little bit. If I think they're a little bit too wobbly, they're not quite what's the word? If they're a little bit irregular, doesn't necessarily matter too much. But things like this here, that just isn't right. That little weird bend. So I just need to pull that out, give it a proper shape. It's all to do with how cloth moves and how we want it to look on a model. What you really don't want is like multiple directions going on. So you've got physics working on the model, then you've got like gravity, you've got movement happening as well. And if there's too much stuff going on, and the weighting isn't consistent across the model, it's really evident when you're looking at it. It kind of just looks jarring. So we've just got to try and figure that one out and straighten it out. I don't think there's not particularly the right way of doing it. for me, I'm stylising a lot, so this is it's very much. I'm not aiming for realism here. I'm aiming for something that's going to paint nice, so and give that look. So it's kind of representative, if you like. There's a whole thing been going on in our house today. Well, it's been going on in our house. It's the extended family. The mother-in-law is a Eurovision nut, and one of the places that was due to be in the running for hosting Eurovision is like the town where we live, like a city, like the nearby city, Birmingham. But I believe they've kicked them out of the running for Eurovision now, and she's a little bit gutted. I couldn't care less, personally, but there's a whole load. My phone's just been buzzing with the family group, just yabbing about Eurovision all night. I think someone's going to be taking a trip to Glasgow for that. So again, just a few more. Let's put dynamic tessellation off this one. A few more nicks, some holes, scratches, little nicks, dashes. You don't want to space them too close to each other. You don't want them to be just like, literally just everywhere. It's good to have some of it going on, but too much will really, it'll become repetitive. You'll get bored of it. It will lose its effect. There's a ratio I always try and maintain. So if you're looking at a model, around about 30% of detail areas, detail concentration, to about 70% of resting space. So with the skirt here as an example, we've got the jagged edges, we've got the little detailing bits going on, the little nicks and notches and all that kind of stuff. And the big smooth areas are obviously there for painting. They're your resting spaces, so your eyes can look at them without kind of getting just detail fatigue, but also you get that whole ability to do a nice little bit of blending. If you're a painter, you can kind of get some nice gradients going on, some blends. Yuffie, thanks for the compliments. Much appreciated. So yeah, it's a style choice, and it's about, like I say, it's about making them paintable, about making it work. And like I say, I know the pains you guys go through when you paint the models, because like I say, I do it myself. And there are times, I'll admit, where I make a model and I'll go back and look at it, and when I actually come to paint it myself, I realise I've screwed up and I've made something overcomplicated, or you get something wrong. And as often as I can, I'll try and go back and correct that, and try and fix the mistake on the model at some point as soon as I get a chance to. But that's not always possible. But I always take that lesson. I always remember those stuff ups and take it into the next sculpt as something to avoid. So those little areas you just can't get your paintbrush into. You've got to kind of get rid of them, eradicate them from the sculpt. To be honest, it's rarely to do with detail. It's mostly to do with gaps. Like on this one, I know I'm going to do this pass anyway later on, but I'll show you here now as an example. So here, if I come up onto this guy's arm, we've got this area right in here between the breastplate, between the torso, and then between the back of the arm. So in there, we've got a void, and then up here, we've also got a void. Now this void at the top is probably more of like a hollow cavity, but I know it's going to be an absolute nuisance to paint. the cavity under the arm is more of a problem, so that will cause problems around here. That's going to cause problems for 3D printing. It's going to potentially get resin traps in there. We're going to have to probably get some supports in there, which will just be a pig. So I'll inflate all of that and just fill that gap. And it's not the most elegant way of dealing with it, but once you've kind of got that the model sculpted, you can go in there with the inflate brush and just use it to fill some of those voids. Just got to be careful it doesn't overshoot and spread into areas where it shouldn't do, because the inflate brush really does have a knack of doing that. What we can do is just pop the inflate in there, and you'll just partially inflate the arm, partially inflate the torso, and you keep going until the gap completely closes. And then when you print the model, then you don't have that little little cavity, that little nook where you can't get your paintbrush into it, you can't really get in there to clean it, you can't remove supports, etc. We just get rid of the lot, and it's just easier that way to deal with. So you'll see like things like the skirts. The skirts here are solid masses. There is no thin walls. I'm not trying to replicate actual material like thin skirts or any of that kind of business. I'm not interested in that. What I need to try and achieve here is basically just making it solid enough that it's going to print without all of those little hidden areas and resin traps. Anything else that I see on here as an issue? One of the things you can get sometimes is where you've got like these straps coming down, you can have a small gap, like a hairline gap running between the skirt and the straps. Not specifically the skirt straps, but where you have like two layers of things going on. You have a layer on top of a layer. If they don't intersect and they leave any form of space running between the two, again you've got this cavity, and that's one of these areas where again you're going to get resin trapped, you're going to get potential issues. And if anybody's wondering why resin entrapment is an issue in 3D printed models, the wet resin can react badly with the cured resin. So if you don't manage to clean it all out, this is especially true if you've got a hollow model. If you hollow a model out for any reason, you need to make sure that you drain it thoroughly, that's a way for the resin to escape, and also for a way that you can cure the inside of the model. Now I know some people swear by like clear resins, like I think it's the Anycubic kind of clear green stuff. The UV light gets straight through that, cures the inside of the models no problem, and people swear by it. But if you're dealing with like a solid coloured resin and opaque resin, you kind of have to deal with that a little bit differently. And if you've ever had like resin that's been left inside a model, there's every chance that at some point in time that model is just going to explode open. So there was a guy posted something kind of Facebook group I'm in some while back now. I think he was a merchant somewhere, so he was selling 3D prints to people, and he basically bought his first 3D printer, set himself up as a merchant, gone and got a load of licenses from different manufacturers, and kind of gone off to start producing models. He'd been doing it for about 6 months, and some models that he'd made, he'd put into a cabinet or on a shelf, come down one day and they just exploded, split wide open, and there was like resin everywhere. So obviously he sold all of these models to customers. The customers are none the wiser, but they've basically purchased ticking time bombs. Now imagine if you get one of these models, or you print one yourself that you haven't drained out properly, you do a nice like Golden Demon style paint job on them, and then all of a sudden the model hemorrhages, explodes open, and leaks resin all over your display cabinet. You're not going to be in the best of moods for a little while after that. So it is something you just got to kind of be careful of with 3D printing generally. And like I say, with things like the areas where your resin's going to get trapped, if you can identify them during a sculpt and remove them, it's just all the better for everyone really. I'm not suggesting like a tiny little bit of resin in the armpit of a model is going to make the model explode open, because that's not realistic, but you know, uncured resin is still a health hazard that you want to kind of avoid at all costs. So yeah, I do what I can during the sculpts to try and, you know, make it happen, or make it not happen rather. Right, so the skirt is done. These leather straps here, I'm just going to come back onto these now. I haven't done this on the other straps yet, but I'm going to use the Orb Crack brush, dynamic tessellation off, intensity about 16, draw size fairly big, and I'm going to run, oh no, that's too intense, that is. I'm just going to run about 12, so I'm going to run I'm going to run it over there a couple of times, do it inverse and like positive and negative strokes, and that will give it a bit of a bit of texture, a little bit of interest, something to paint. You know, rather than just having a straight strip, you've got a few highlights you can add in there, which just breaks up the monotony of the space. Then I just need to go and do that with these ones as well. So I'm just going to go and just isolate these bits. I don't want to do it over the little balls, the little studs. So I'm just going to leave the studs off for it. And I want to kind of go roughly in the same direction, because these guys are like on top of each other pretty much. There we go. That's one. And then I'll just jump over to the other one over here. Same again. Oh no. This isn't going to be a massively long stream tonight, because I'm doing hey Adam. Yeah, cheers man. Yeah, I'll try and explain everything. There's a lot of design decisions, a lot of bits of experience that you just pick up over time. So I'm just trying to explain the things that I don't want you just thinking I'm just doing random stuff for no purpose. Just, you know, I try to be purposeful with my brush strokes. Try not to be wasteful with them. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3 Merregons done. This guy needs chips and nicks and stuff in his armour and on his weapons, so I'm just going to merge him down to his skirt. Just position him for consistency, so he's back up here. I don't know if anybody from last night's stream will see this or not, but not last night's stream, the last live stream I did. We had a bit of a discussion about these guys and how they should look. And I forget who it was now, but somebody was... Yeah, see, Orb Cracks is brilliant, and it's one of those tools. I use it for so many different things. So you've just seen me use it to do big creases and folds in fabric, and I use it a lot. So when I do like the back of the skirts and I'm creating the folds in the fabric, what I tend to do is if you use it, if I'm doing like a cape, I'll take a cube, I'll flatten it down, I'll position it and drag it over the shoulders, nice and crude with the move brush. Shape it how I want it shaped. Hey Skyhawk, how you doing? So yeah, shape the cape how you want it, and then when it's fairly thin, when it's fairly thin, you take a low intensity brush of Orb Cracks with lazy mouse turned on, and with quite a large draw size. And with the Orb Cracks, when you press on it, the harder you press, the larger the brush size goes as well. I know you can change that in the stroke settings anyways, but that is how that brush works by default. So when you're on there and you drag through the cape or whatever, what actually happens is it pulls through to the other side as well. So you don't just create the crease that, you know, a kind of a raised crease or a depressed crease on the cape on the side you're sculpting on. It also does the opposite on the other side. So you'll create a uniform kind of flow of material on both sides of the cape. So you've seen me do it for cloth folds and for texturing up the leather there, and now I'm going to come in with the exact same brush, much smaller draw size. I'm going to come down to 14, 15, crank up the intensity to about 40, and then make sure my lazy mouse is turned off, because if I turn lazy mouse on and show you first, like if I do that, you see how it's gone? I'm going to turn dynamic tessellation on as well, because that will just help to not have it go jagged. But you see how it kind of, it's not too bad because it does pull through, but when I do the sides here, you see how it hasn't started at the beginning of the stroke, it's kind of picked up a little bit further on. So if I'm doing a scratch in the middle of an armour plate, having the lazy mouse on is not a problem. But if I want to try and notch the edge of the armour, turn it off, and it literally just gouge it where I want it to go, and it will take it right to the edge. So you can chip the armour, you can nick it. We can do scratches in there as well. And again, a lot of these little ones here, they're very superficial. They're not really going to show up an awful lot on the model. You might pick them out in a dry brush, but they're more for just breaking up a little bit of monotony on the model. Unlike large areas, the big nicks on the sides, they will absolutely show up. But again, you don't want to be too heavy-handed and have them everywhere. And when you're doing a regiment of troops like I've got here, where I've got 4 or 5 guys, I'm always mindful that I'm probably putting the scratches in the same places every time. So it's something to keep an eye out for. Whether you see it as an issue is not, you know, it's down to the individual. But you know, I tend to not want too much repetition. A little bit's fine. I mean, these guys are literally supposed to be, even down to the face masks, they are supposed to be like, you know, carbon copies of each other. But yeah, I don't think I actually finished saying the last time I did these guys on stream, we had a few discussions about it, and somebody requested that I put one of the guys in Crocs with a little Mexican moustache, and I'll be honest, it did tickle me, so I'm doing it. So, I don't know which one's going to have the Crocs yet. It'll be a surprise. But it'll be interesting to see if there's many comments about it. So these guys have got the little strong hand, and they've got one of them's going to have the Crocs in their fun little tash on his helmet. You may be able to see, these guys could do with a pedicure at the moment as well, because they're all gnarly toenails and all that good stuff. So I'm just going to notch up the weapon. I wouldn't do this on every model, but with these guys being, you know, the Devil Legion troops and, you know, mindless. Are they automatons? Anybody know on the Merregons? Are they supposed to be like zombie type troops, or are they supposed to be intelligent, or are they just very, very loyal and good at following orders? I'm not 100% sure myself, but right. So there we go. So gonna mash his face up a little bit, again, just to add a little bit of visual difference from one to the other. No, so there's some areas where like the neck meets the head and things like that they're not particularly elegant, but I can live with that. It's not the end of the world. I'm going to come back in and definitely do a smoothing blending pass to try and get everything ready. So we'll be good with that. So on top of all of these troops, we've got the, again, if you didn't see them before, I'll show you now. We've got the spined devils. So these like little flying dudes. So we've got 5 of them. I'm going to get the 5 Merregons ready, and then on tomorrow's scheduled stream I'm going to be finishing off the sculpt of Eleanor. So if I just show you Eleanor now, she's on the bottom of the screen, I think. There she is. So we've got Eleanor on the bottom of the screen. Kathy, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the follow. So yeah, so Eleanor on screen there. You can see her at the bottom. So she is the model I'm making. Well, I've finished her. She's done. It's the little imp I've got to do. So I'll be making this imp tomorrow on my 10 o'clock stream, and then once that imp is done, that one's her familiar. I'm going to be giving a bunch of these guys similar armour similar armour. There won't be a lot of armour on them because they're little tiny imps, but there will definitely be a few little things going on. I've lost my Merregons now. There we go. So yeah, there'll be a few little things going on with these guys to tie them into the Infernal Legion. So we'll give them, maybe a tiny couple of little armour plates, maybe a shoulder pad, maybe a little helmet of some kind. So they won't be huge. They're going to be like they're going to be like snotling sized models. So detail's going to be fairly minimal, fairly simplistic, but we can. They'll be usable. They'll be printable. They'll be usable in the game. So they will probably be ready for next month's release. So these guys are going into this month's Patreon release and Tribes release. The Spine Devils will be in there as well, so there'll be about 10 models going out in this month's one. And then for next month, I've got my phone here with a little list of the models on there. I've got a to-do list. So next month is going to be a little bit more character heavy. And again, I'll stream some of these so you can see them happening. We've got Falister Fisk, a human spy. We've got an elderly, what it just says, an elderly aristocrat who was a prisoner. Then we've got Thavius Krieg, the High Overseer from Elturiel. And then I've got a farmer with a horse and cart, hay cart. And then a couple of a Cambion. Anybody know what a Cambion is? And then Sylvia Silvacus, the female tiefling mage with a Quasit familiar. So I'll say it'll be a character heavy month next month. Possibly a few kind of bandits or brigands or something like that as well if I get the chance, but we'll see how it pans out. Tomorrow, next month's going to be a fairly big month for me on commissions. I've got I don't know how much I can talk about them, but there's one big one which is supposed to be going to Kickstarter next month, so I've got to make sure everything's finished for that one ahead of the Kickstarter launch. And then I've got the Cursed Empire, so they're going off to Essen on the 5th of October. They're going to be there doing their yeah. You feel that yeah, it is. It's basically it's a male demon with wings. That's demon-y looking. Well, it's kind of tiefling, isn't it? It's like a tiefling with wings, as I understand it. I think this guy's got some armour and stuff. So, so yeah. So it's again, they're all part of the Descent into Avernus campaign. So they're all going to be my own renditions of them. They'll all be, based on character descriptions and bios and profiles and bits and bobs that you get in the books. So Kraz, I'll have to check him out. I'll have a look at him. See if we can get a little bit of influence before I come to that sculpt. It's one of those ones that kind of... I remember reading it for the first time thinking, what the hell is a cambion? But yeah, it's I don't. He's not. No, not. They're not shapeshifters, are they? I think he's just using. I shouldn't say too much about this because if you haven't played Descent into Avernus, I'm probably throwing spoilers out everywhere here for you. But it's a fantastic campaign if anybody's interested in it. If anybody's thinking about kind of having a go at a new one. Right. So. Yeah, so I was saying the Cursed Empire guys, they're going to be at Essen selling stuff, showing off the card game, Heroes of Thargos. They've got War Galleys of Thargos, which is due on Kickstarter soon, and there's also a tabletop roleplay game which is going to be very undead heavy, with a nice scenario in there. I've seen loads of this and it's looking amazing. Loads and loads and loads of like board art and stuff like that, so they can I think they were looking at doing like a book, like the spiral bound books that you can flip out, something along those kind of lines. And then the what do you call it, the models for the Cursed Empire stuff, that they're all made by me. So I actually made the original hand sculpted metal ones that they had kind of years and years and years back before I even switched to digital. So this is pre-2010, so it's a really old range. And they make me cringe to look at them now. But second edition stuff. Do you know, I think I've got a couple of the second edition books, but I've never actually played second edition. Prior to a couple of games of D&D, I'd only actually ever played Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which is actually really good fun. If anybody's looking for something a little bit different, I'm pretty sure you can still get the books for it. But so yeah, so the where we're talking, yeah. So the Cursed Empire models, I made all the original range, and then Chris, who runs. No, I never worked for Games Workshop. They've tried to tempt me a few times, but I don't know. The salary's just not quite up to scratch for new sculptors. But yeah, so yeah, Cursed Empire. So I did the original range all the way back pre-2010, and then I switched to digital and I started doing everything digitally then. And Chris, who created the whole Cursed Empire universe, if you like, he came back to me. He saw my more recent models, and he was like, "Can you come and do them again for me? Can you remake them in this new style and bring it to life again?" So we're just in the process of making a load of stuff. I've done a load of hero characters that's bespoke for him. We've got some like zombies going on, which are going into this new campaign set. But what Chris has also done is reverse engineered a lot of the models I've made for my own range, and he's included them in the game. So what you'll find is, like, if you've got any of my older stuff, like particularly things like the cultists and the undead, the zombies and the skeletons and things, all of those you'll be able to shoehorn into this game, so you'll be able to use them all as part of the campaign because they're legit. And yeah, so Cursed Empire, it's so
22 years ago, Chris created Cursed Empire, it was called Crimson Empire at the time. So the books I've got here, they are Crimson Empire books. But then he got a cease and desist from LucasArts because apparently Crimson Empire is a Star Wars IP. So had to change the name. So after it had all gone to publish and print and everything else, everything got rebranded as Cursed Empire then. So let me see if we can find a couple of the Cursed Empire minis for you, and I'll see if I can show you the. Have I got any of the renders? So here's a few of the. This is the Colonel Assassin that you can see on the screen. And then we've got. This is the new Imperial Legion I've done for him. So very Greek styled, with the big shields. We've got the guys with the swords at the front. There's also some. So this is the new Druidess, Elven Druidess. I think that's the one we've gone with, where she doesn't have the big cape at the back. She's just got the low cape there. And what else do I have? Can't find any off the top of my head, but yeah, basically there's a card game called Heroes of Thargos, which is like a 2-player. Oh, do you know, Ross? Thanks for tuning in, man. I've got multi-stream and I've got Twitch chat, and I think I've switched to the wrong one, so I've missed multi-stream. So I haven't been ignoring you on purpose. But now that I can see you there, I've got you there. Got you, man. Yeah, it's live. I'm gonna be clocking off in about 15 minutes or so. So yeah, she's got a pretty skimpy outfit, that Druidess. Oh, that's no worries on that. But yeah, so yeah, where was I then? Yeah, so Cursed Empire then. So you got the card game, which is Heroes of Thargos, which is like 2-player duel. So this is the game where you take your heroes and you battle. You create like a battle, and there's loads of scenarios and stuff in there as well. So it's not just like not like a Pokemon kind of game. There's a lot more to it than that. It's a really good game actually. I'd encourage you to go and have a little look online and check it out. I'm sure you'll find some gameplay videos. Been very, very active in the. In fact, I'm just going to post the Thargos Insiders group. So the Thargos Insiders group is where Chris has been posting. He's been posting all of the updates on everything they're doing. Really, he's been posting it all in there. So I've just posted it there on the Twitch stream. If you're interested and you want to have a little look and find out when he's releasing the models and what's going on with it, have a little look on there. I believe he'll have all the models on sale at Essen this coming weekend anyway, along with the card games and various other bits and bobs. But yeah, we've got the tabletop roleplay game coming out for that. Then we've got I think he's doing 3rd edition of the roleplay rules. So if you're a proper avid role player, check them out again. Have a little look at that. But what's interesting is you've got the War Galleys one, which is like, if you take the Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you jump in the ship and go and do a bit of naval warfare. It's like a card game version of that. So you've basically got a role-play game where you can properly get into the characters and everything else. Then you've got a tabletop role-play game that you can use to enact certain scenarios and things on a tabletop with loads of miniatures and combat encounters. And then you can go hero versus hero and duke it out with the card game, and then you can flip it up and use the. It's okay. It's just a boat in Odyssey, mate. But get on it and play the game. It's awesome. But yeah, and then you can jump in ships and go and duff each other up on the sea before then flipping back into a bit of role play and whatever else. So the games are actually all designed to be interchangeable. So you've got 4 different systems that can either be played completely in isolation, or you can flip between them. So yeah, Cursed Empire. Ross, you'd have seen that one. That was the one I had on the stand at the end at Chilcon as well. So we've got that. Some more sculpts for that coming up, ready for this the tabletop roleplay game drop. And then on the last stream, we were talking about the Crystal Collapse game I'm working on with my friend Max. So this one is kind of Final Fantasy Tactics, Ogre Tactics, Fire Emblem, yeah, all those kind of like strategy games brought to a tabletop, and we've got a real nice kind of JRPG aesthetic going on. And yeah, so basically we've got I've got two factions of that to get sculpted, plus a couple of mercenaries. So I think I should have 10 characters ready for the time we come to launch that one, and that'll be a Kickstarter for like a box game, we think. We're weighing up at the moment whether we do print and play or whether we go, just here's a box of models and the rules and scenery and stuff you need to play the game. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And then there's another little side project on top of all of that, which is kind of a bit of a slow burner in the background, and I'm not even going to mention that until we've got more kind of like advanced with it, and we've got a little bit of something to show off, really. A couple of models, a bit of scenery, a little scenario kind of setup. But this will be a proper tabletop skirmish type game, and it'll be kind of, I want to say sci-fi. It's not quite. It's kind of sci-fi, but not quite sci-fi. It's kind of still fantasy. Sci-fantasy, is it? I don't know. So it's something like that anyway. But so yeah, absolutely tons and tons and tons going on. Plus all of the usual, all of the usual Patreon releases. So carried on with Descent into Avernus, where I think we've got more Devil Legions coming up. There's a whole load of undead things coming up in there as well, I believe. So I've got a whole leg of campaign that involves ghasts and ghouls and all sorts of good stuff. Skeletons, mummies, the works, man. Yeah, Yuffie, we did talk about kind of having a digital option as well as a physical option, because Max is a native German speaker, so he's written all the rules and everything in German. And our early playtests of Crystal Collapse were hampered a little bit by the fact that all of the stat cards were in German, and I don't even speak a word of the language, so he was kind of having to explain it to me, and it took a lot longer. It's now all translated into English for the most part, so we've just got to do a little bit of a sense check pass on it just to make sure the game still plays as intended with the changes to the language. So we are going to be looking for playtesters on Crystal Collapse as well, so if you want to shoot me a DM if you're interested in doing that, we can add you into the Crystal Collapse playtesters group. And then once we've got the game geared up and ready to rock, we'll be doing a little bit of a show off on that, and a little bit of a run through before we let you kind of loose on it and let you play the game yourself. Now I believe I can. Did I have it? Trying to find the Crystal Collapse folder I had that has got the. I took some renders the other night when we were on our stream. Not even. I think I'm getting tired now. I'm babbling and making mistakes, but it was. I just want to show you the picture of the game being played, just because it's cool. I don't even know where I've put it. It's annoying. Ah, got it. Yeah, here we go. So there we go. So this is the this is what Crystal Collapse looks like on Tabletop Simulator. So we have the The character art has been turned into player pieces. Every character's got their own stat cards. The game is played with a combination of a standard poker deck and a selection of dice. So we have a D4 dice used for movement. We're using D6 dice as health trackers. Then we've got D10s for defense and D20s for attack. So the way the game plays, you have a really nice, simple to pick up system with a simple mechanic, and the dice and the cards play out together to give you a really nice mixture of strategy plus luck. So things can still turn on you in the drop of a hat, or things can really kind of go your way depending on how it comes out. So if we do print and play, you can see there's quite a few. Ross. So basically, what we've got is we want to try and encourage people to make terrain themselves. So it works on different levels. So if you've ever played Final Fantasy Tactics, the facing of the model is very important, and so is the elevation you attack from. So we've taken that principle and we brought it into the game. So if you're on a higher level, you end up getting like range extensions on missile weapons. You get a bonus to hit or bonus damage on opponents who are on a lower level, and vice versa. Hitting uphill is more difficult. So the height is important to the gameplay, and so is the facing of the model. The little red pip you can see on each of the bases is to denote the front of the miniature. So the game it plays beautifully simply. I mean, I've played I think 3 games with Max now, and I picked it up on the first game, and then we've been refining it and polishing it since then. So we've got like weekly gaming sessions planned in where we can kind of get our heads into it and try and like make sure it's slick and it's smooth. But Max has play tested this tons with other people as well, so it's not just me playing the game with him. And he's doing a fantastic job writing it, and he's got a lot on his plate at the moment. He's just finished the Nanolith Kickstarter. Nanolith was one of the game designers on Nanolith. And that's just done like 200 grand plus on Kickstarter, and he's obviously in the thick of things with that now. But he's still committed to this and trying to make it happen, and we're pushing on with it. So it's all good stuff. But if anybody else does fancy having a go at this tabletop simulator arrangement with us, once we've done a little bit of that's the one. Mate, I put out a few shout outs for it on Facebook. I don't know if they're going to be going into a late pledge, but there's definitely other opportunities to pick it up. So I know they've sold like 2,500 units of the game or something like that, and I think so there's another there's another 500 or 600 have gone out to commercial tier backers. But yeah, the game looks fantastic. The models are really nice in there, and it's a very kind of cyberpunk narrative. It plays out like a graphic novel, I believe, and there's quite a few I'm going to use the word gimmick, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. There's a few gimmicky things in the game that I've not seen before, like using stickers to level up your character and things. So yeah, It is a cracking game. It just looks phenomenal. But yeah, the board on this is you just lay it out however you want, really. So we're chewing over whether we supply terrain for it or not. We're gonna probably supply STL terrain that you can print off, and they'll be like little squares that stack up on top of each other. Or different height squares that you can arrange on the board. But when Max has played this, not with this, I think he's just using is it the XPF foam, just cut into cubes, and then it's got like a bit of static grass on there, a bit of flock, things like that, just to kind of like, you know, turn it into terrain instead of just a block of polystyrene. So it's quite simple. We'll probably put out a few hobby tutorials if you want to kind of take it to that level. So how to make your own DIY boards and things like that. And then I suppose that does play into just having a print on demand setup that not print on demand. Sorry, what am I talking about? Having a print and play arrangement where you buy the STL files for the models and the scenery. You know, print the rule books, do your own player cards and stuff. But then obviously my my only reservation with that is we might make a killing on the Kickstarter selling a digital product, but we want this to be a game that people play because there's so much potential for it. It's so strategic. It's one of these kind of games that you really could take it into like a tournament type level. With the right mix of, you know, being able to choose your own characters, because we're talking about 8 characters in the box, so there'll be two teams in the box set. There'll be 4 characters per team, and then we'll throw a few mercenaries in so you can mix up your team. But ultimately we were talking about doing 52, because we're using cards as a mechanic in there. We're talking about doing like 52 characters that you'll be able to play, so 1 for each card in the deck. So with a combination of 52 characters in the game, you'll be able to take 4 at any one for any one scenario, and then with equipment cards, different objectives, and like I say, the different team configurations. There's also ability add-ons for the characters, so you can kind of give them an additional 2 abilities each. And again, that allows further customization of your team, so you can end up with a real, you know, a really bespoke team that plays exactly how you want it to work. And you can have some really good synergies between the characters, where they can kind of really buff each other up and bounce off each other. And it's called Crystal Collapse Skyhawk. So if you follow me on Facebook, there'll be probably, we want to be aiming for about Easter to be able to kind of get the first draft of this game up and out to the public. So we're probably looking at doing playtesting. I would suggest probably November time. So we've got like I say, the game's ready to go on Tabletop Simulator. So yeah, no worries, Ross. You take it easy, man. I'm going to be logging off in a second myself anyway, so you take it easy, man. We'll catch up later. But yeah, so yeah, just wanted to give you a rundown on all the various things that I'm juggling at the moment. So there's a few projects I can't talk about as well. Well, I don't know if I can talk about, so I'll leave them out for the time being. But yeah, as and when I can kind of like talk to you about them, I'll show off the models and you know, give you some insider info and whatever else I'm allowed to do. So and then once I've caught up on the sculpting, I'll probably do a painting stream or 2. There is no Kickstarter for it yet, Skyhawk. There will be. So Crystal Collapse is still like very early days. So this what you're looking at on screen here is still a tabletop simulator prototype. So we're using this for playtesting and just refining it. Kickstarter's probably going to be about Easter time. And yeah, it's going to be. It's one I'm really looking forward to kind of pushing it across the line and seeing how it does. It was one of the things that was important to me. Is like my son who's 7, he's really getting into like D&D and his fantasy stuff at the moment. He's loving reading and he really wants to get into these kind of things. And we play several games together, a lot of like Switch games and stuff, and he's like nailing these, like, you know, like Zelda and that kind of stuff. and then we got him onto like board games. So we've got a few games we play, but his favourite game is Zombicide, and he picked Zombicide up in literally like 1-2 sessions. We played the first 2 starter campaigns, and then my niece's boyfriend came round, and Jacob sat down. He was like, "Right, Sam, let's play this. I'll show you how to do it." And after playing two kind of like sessions of Zombicide, he'd already picked up the core rules enough to be able to kind of teach somebody else. So it's very important from my point of view, and for Max as well. Max is 100% on board with me here, that we have that same kind of like ease of pickup with Crystal Collapse. So it is a game that you'll be able to pick it up very, very quickly. The information is all on the cards for you. It's all in front of you as you're playing. And we're just trying to get that one sheet, that A4 sheet on the back of the rule book that you can refer to for like these, order of play and things like that. So once we've got that ready, we're ready to start going for like public beta testing then. And we have got to that point now where the game is simple enough that you can play one game of it and know the core rules easy enough, and the sequences you've got to follow, fairly easily. And like for me, I need a reminder every turn to like draw a new card, because I always forget to like take my card off the deck, and it's just silly things like that. And by having a crib sheet and a prompt sheet, it's you get that reminder there, and you can get stuck in with that. But we are planning, me and Max, to do a stream for you all where we are gonna load this up live, and we are going to play through a game of Crystal Collapse on a stream. So you'll see it all all go in. We'll have Max on screen. I'll put his little face down in the corner here so you can see his webcam as well, and he'll be able to kind of like field some and answer some of your questions as well. So if you've got any anything you want to throw up there, that'll be the time when Max is about. So yeah, so it's a very exciting project. The artwork's beautiful. I'd show you more of it, but what is here now, we've literally today decided to change the art style. so after kind of having all of these characters designed and drawn up in this beautiful anime-esque style, we are now changing it up a bit. So I will show you what they did look like and what they are now looking like. So as an example, can I show you Roland? And here we go. So here is Roland and Corrado. So these are two of the guys. These are like your main characters for the one faction. So this is the original artwork we had for them, and these are the original sculpts I did for each of these two guys. Now we've changed that up, so Corrado's artwork looks more like this now. Corrado's artwork looks more like that. So it's a different style. It's a bit darker and grittier. But I feel it's got a little bit more. It takes itself a bit more seriously, and there's a little bit more detail going on the actual character here. But it's still not a huge deviation on where we were before. It's just a slight style change. So the rework's just going on at the moment. The artist involved in it is just. He did that. He knocked that out in the morning after we'd had a discussion on the phone about it. So he's he's quick and he's effective. So he's just going to rework the 10 figures that we need for the starter set to start with, and then as soon as he's done the artwork for them, I'll get cracking with the sculpts. And I've spoken to Max about it. He's happy for me to do it, but we're going to do the sculpts as part of streaming. So when I do my Wednesday stream, my scheduled Wednesday, the scheduled Wednesday stream will be a Crystal Collapse sculpting session. So you'll be able to tune in and see all of that. and then I'll use other I'll use other streams to tackle different characters and other sculpting projects and things. Bit of the Patreon bits and bobs like tonight with the Merregons. So yeah, it's all go at the moment. There's a lot going on. I say a lot to be excited about, and potentially a lot of money to be spending on Kickstarters. I'm going to have to rein myself in a little bit because I've got a big drop coming from Andy Hobday and Paul Hicks with the Barons War Kickstarter that they ran. So the last Kickstarter they did was the Outremer, like the Dark Age Crusades, you know, the Knights Templar out in the Middle East, trying to convert all of the Muslims into Christians and whatnot, or just wipe out Islam. However, it was, you know, whatever their actual goal was. But so you've got all of the Knights Templar Crusader models. You've got the Saracen Islamic warriors, and the models are just beautiful. And I've got a huge big wedge of them going to be dropping through soon, hopefully. And yeah, I did the scenery for the Kickstarters, the Barons War project. So there was the Barons War Death and Taxes. I did the Wimenton Village. So if you want to, if you're a tabletop gamer and you want any of that stuff, have a look at Footsore's website. You can get all of the. I'll pull it up now actually, but they do they do sell the models as resin kits. God, what's going on? There we go. Put the windows just so I can't quite reach the top bar on it. So yeah, so they've got was it Barons War 3D printed terrain. So this Wimenton village here that they do is the one I sculpted for them. So this is all the humans and the horses are from Paul Hicks, but all of the terrain, the barricades and everything like that, that was all stuff I did. Now I believe they're going to be selling STL. They did sell STL files during the campaign. They don't sell them through the Footsore website, but I believe Warhost will be selling them at some point. So if you've got any need for a kind of a 1400s Dark Ages medieval hamlet or village, keep your eyes peeled there. If you want to just get somebody else to print it for you, they're all actually printed in resin as well. So they're all decent quality resin prints. They're not FDM. So they invested heavily in resin printers to be able to kind of do all of this and deliver them properly. So yeah, that's all there. There's no Crusader Fort on here just yet because that's obviously got to go through the Kickstarter before they release that one and launch it. So, but yeah, check them out anyway. The Barons War range is fantastic. Mortal Gods is another one to have a look out for. I've got a few little jobs on my list about that. Some new heads and bits and bobs there. Gangs of Rome as well. We've got a few bits going on for that. So there'll be the Footsore are busy. they're very, very busy at the moment. So check them out. Have a little look. If there's anything that takes your fancy, then jump on and grab it whilst it's there. Okay. After all those plugs and whatnot, I've exhausted myself. I'm going to go in and spend a bit of time with the wife and catch up on a bit of telly. So she doesn't feel like I've just abandoned her. In my little office down the bottom of the garden. Okay, guys, thanks for everyone tuning in. It's been a pleasure again. So I'll be back on stream tomorrow morning at 10 to carry on with the rest of the... good night, Yufu. Take care. I'll be back on tomorrow morning at 10 doing the imp and getting that one ready for the model to go with Alanor. And if I finish that, I might convert him into Avernus imps with the armour and don't know, maybe some bombs and crazy goings on. But yeah, again, I'm not going to raid out tonight because I don't know who to raid. I'm just going to say goodnight, and yeah, thanks again everyone, and we'll see you again soon. Night people.